Things change as we get older. We don't like to admit it, but we have to accept it. That's totally fine. We just change the things that we eat a little bit to modify and accommodate that. It's all good. Things change as we get older. It's just life. But that's not a big deal as long as we understand how to kind of navigate that situation, how to eat different things. So I have 14 foods that I personally feel people over 50 should be eating more of. It's not the end all be all, but there's some huge benefits to these as far as, well, just the gut goes and other systems within the body. So let's talk about it. You see, Elie Metchnikoff probably said it best. He really postulated that there's a link between an unhealthy just gut integrity, meaning like our gut gets weaker as we get older and it starts leaking things in, and aging. There's just a really solid link there. And the reality there is as we get older, things start to break down our gut a little bit more, which means that pathogenic things that shouldn't leak through the gut get a chance to leak through the gut. And therefore that triggers, well, an inflammatory cascade within the body that can make us not feel very good. We feel stiff, maybe we feel achy, we feel brain foggy, all these things that if you talk to 99% of people over 50, they say they deal with, and they didn't deal with it earlier in life. So the first category, I'm gonna break this down into sort of categories. The first category is going to be gut integrity. What are foods that you should just be adding in here and there to hopefully help out that gut integrity a little bit? The first one is pomegranate. Pomegranate contains very specific polyphenols that can signal the tight junctions within the gut to get a little bit tighter. So you don't need to be consuming a big sloppy messy pomegranate. I know they're probably the biggest pain in the butt to eat, and if you have young kids or you probably remember the last thing I want to give my toddler is a pomegranate, okay? But there's some power there, so a little concentrated pomegranate juice might be a really good thing there. Additionally, green tea. Okay, the EGCG within green tea can actually send signals and send a whole different cascade of compounds that can tighten up those junctions as well. It also gives some of the bacteria what it needs so that it doesn't have to pull from the gut mucosal layer. A lot of times when we go in between meals, it's a pretty normal thing. Our microbes within our gut, they would normally feed on what are called plant glycans. But if our stomach is empty or our intestines are empty, they're gonna feed on some of the glycans that are living on like the host mucous membrane. So they start breaking that down. Again, totally normal thing, but we have to be cognizant of it. So a little bit of green tea in between meals is never a bad thing. Now, one of the things that I found significantly interesting is chickpea flour or chickpea pasta. Okay, or even just straight up chickpeas, but it's a little bit harder to break down. Chickpea pasta, which is like everywhere, that contains a very specific compound that triggers the expression of genes. Expression of genes means it allows those genes to do their job. They are becoming expressed. A lot of times we have a ton of genes that just remain under lock and key and they don't actually get unlocked or expressed. They have to get acted upon by specific ligands or whatever. In this case, chickpeas are powerful for that because the genes express that are directly correlated with creating tighter junctions in the gut. Remember, those loose junctions can allow things to potentially cross through, which may signal a lot of different things to happen. Okay? And then the sort of puzzle piece with all of this is adding some collagen into the mix, so you're actually getting the proteins to do the job, right? The proteins to help rebuild that gut mucosal layer. You're putting the pieces together that send the signals, but then you actually need the proteins too. So a little bit of collagen added in the mix, number 4, is really, really powerful and important. By the way, I put a link down below for the collagen that I recommend. It's from a company called Perfect Keto. Don't have to be doing keto to use it. It's just from a company called Perfect Keto. So I recommend, they are down below. I put a link down in the description, and that link saves you a few bucks as well. So it gets you a special discount code if you're watching this video. No pressure at all. They're just a supporter of this channel. I like to throw them a bone or some collagen whenever I can. So use that link down below in the description to check them out. Okay, moving on, we still have to focus on the gut a little bit because everything kind of starts there, but we're looking more at signaling. Okay, so as we get older, we have to pay attention to foods that are going to trigger the biggest metabolic signals. Okay, our body is all feedback, okay, which means that we have feedback that sends a signal to the brain, that sends a negative feedback or a positive feedback somewhere else. It's all communication. Otherwise, like, we'd be operating without a governor. We need something to like regulate things. And these signals are what send signals to the brain saying XYZ is doing XYZ, okay? So in this case, we talk about short chain fatty acids, which are signaling molecules that are in our gut. And when we eat food, the foods break down And our gut microbiome breaks the food down even more into these short chain fatty acids, which are the signaling molecules to help us metabolize glucose better, to help us metabolize fats better, to help us express more genes. Okay, it also allows us to have what is called, something very important, histone deacetylase inhibition. Okay, so histone deacetylase inhibition means you are unlocking the genes to be able to do their job again. So by having more short chain fatty acids, we get that job done. But what happens? Why does this matter for you for over 50? Well, if you're over 50, you don't have as many short chain fatty acids. There's very clear science that shows up to 50% or more of your short chain fatty acids can go away. So that means you have less than 50% of what you did when you were younger, sending signals for good metabolism. This is generally a result of not eating enough calories or not eating enough fiber. Depends on your situation. Some people don't eat enough as they get older. They really don't. They should be eating more. Some people eat too much, but their ratio of fiber's off. So either way, the way that you can get around this is by consuming a few things. Plantains. You only need like a quarter to a half of a plantain. Okay? It's a specific kind of resistant starch that is resistant to the absorption into the bloodstream, so it stays in the gut and gets broken down into short chain fatty acids. In the same category, another food, green unripe bananas. Now you're gonna turn off this video because now I sound insane. But first of all, they don't taste that bad. And second of all, you only need like a quarter of one again. You can inch your way up. You might feel a little bit of bloating when you consume it because it is staying in your gut and it's fermenting, creating more bacteria and short chain fatty acids. It is a good thing. Mix it up, put it in oatmeal, something like that. Then consume some artichoke. It contains something called a long chain inulin, technically a very long chain inulin, which is a specific kind of fiber that digests slow. So you get a lot of benefit from a prebiotic sense that can definitely have a powerful effect, if not the most powerful effect on short chain fatty acid production of any vegetable. Cashews, but there's a big caveat with cashews. You have to sprout them or buy them sprouted. Don't try to cut a corner by having a roasted or just a regular raw cashew. There's too much phytic acid, which breaks down the gut barrier, which kind of eliminates all those potential positive things we did with the first category. Okay, so sprouted cashews are very good too. Okay, another one is it's in a lot of foods these days, and it's in a lot of those lower carb foods. And sometimes people think it's bad, but it's called chicory root. And chicory root is actually just fine. Okay, if you just don't want a lot of it, it'll bloat you, but it's totally fine. So look for foods that have chicory root in it. Some of the even like the low carb treats, like lower carb keto cookies, they use it as a binder to give it texture and to give it volume, but it's actually really good for your gut and really good for that overall signaling. This next category is under the polyphenols category. And this is probably the most important category just for overall just taking care of your brain and taking care of how your body is working. So in this case, we have different polyphenols doing different things, but one thing is very important to know. The polyphenols don't just absorb. Polyphenols get acted upon by the microbes in our gut, and we absorb the metabolites of the polyphenols. So the first one is chocolate. As you get older, you should be consuming unsweetened or very lightly sweetened dark chocolate. Okay, two very beneficial things that are happening here. Polyphenols, which are signaling and have the metabolites that affect different things from an inflammatory level. Okay, and two, good PPAR activation. We want more fatty acid utilization as we get older because it yields more calories. Fat has 9 calories per gram. If our body gets used to using fat, it's a better fuel source as we get older because it's also very, very anti-catabolic. It keeps us from wasting muscle. Chocolate has the potential to activate PPAR and be very good for people over 50 if you're concerned about muscle wasting. Hazelnuts are also rich in very specific polyphenols. Pecans within the same category. Capers, very high in quercetin. This is one of the most potent things that we could have in the way of polyphenols and flavonoids, okay? We really do want to have those, so don't be afraid about the salt. It's really not as bad as you think they are. Add them to some salmon, add them to things like that. And then the last one that I have to touch on, I've mentioned it in another video, don't be afraid of berries. People think that fruit's gonna just destroy the results, whether they're doing low carb or not, because they think it magically gets turned to fat. You have to consume a lot of it, but if you lean into berries like strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, okay, those things are going to be fine in like half a cup to 3/4 of a cup moderation. But they also have very specific compounds like polyphenol metabolites that can cross through the blood-brain barrier and modulate an inflammatory response within the brain, helping you potentially not have as much brain fog, but also kind of like modulating the immune response that's associated with what's called the microglia, which is the immune system within the brain. So if we can control that a little bit, we can potentially mitigate some of the risk of neurodegenerative issues that might, well, I don't know, have some cognitive decline association. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. Don't forget to check out Perfect Keto Collagen down below, and I will see you tomorrow.